Established by Philip de Barry of Ballybeg and Manabere, Pembrokeshire, Barry's Court was built on land granted him by Royal Charter, dated 24th of February 1206 by Henry III, King of England, at Woodstock. David Barry of Barry's Court supported the Earl Fitzgerald of Desmond during the rebellions of 1569 to 1573 and 1579 to 1583. During the Second Rebellion, Lord Barry was an active partisan, causing Sir Walter Raleigh to write in his letter dated Cork, 25th of February 1581, Next came the Irish Confederation War 1641 to 1653, when Barry's Court was once again targeted. Cannonballs lodged in the walls above the castle entrance bear witness to these conflicts. From about this time, the Coppinger family took possession of Barry's Court. Then, upon the death of William Coppinger in 1863, Barry's Court passed to Morgan John O'Connell, and nephew to the Liberator, Daniel O'Connell. Barry's Court is one of the finest examples of a restored Irish townhouse ever undertaken by the Office of Public Works, OPW, consisting of an outer-born wall and largely intact corner towers. The main and great halls have been completed with fittings and furnishings reinstated. Today, Barry's Court is recorded by the National Inventory of Archaeological Heritage (NIAH) as a protected structure CO075-018001. Whilst a substantial part of the Augustinian Abbey ruins still stand, its origins were until recently shrouded by the mist of time. They formed part of the Augustinian Canon's Ballybeg estate, endowed by Philip de Barry, possibly when he built Barry's Court, sometime after the siege of Lismore in 1195 and before the Royal Charter of 24th of February 1206. It was still intact for the down survey of 1656-58. Uniquely, Protestant and Catholics lie buried side by side in the old cemetery surrounding the Abbey ruins. Among the individuals of historical significance buried here include Sir James Cotter, circa 1630-1705, highly regarded by King Charles II and respected commander of Jacobite forces in Cork, 1688-91, under King James II in the war against William of Orange. Young James Cotter, 1689-1720, son of Sir James and prominent Jacobite, was hanged in controversial circumstances and much lamented in Ireland and England. On the 300th anniversary of Sir James Cotter's execution, at the easing of COVID restrictions, our committee members placed a wreath beneath his family marble plaque, which once surmounted the family vault. Died by 1757-8 to 1851, tenant farmer and poet, was one of the most important authors of the Irish language in the first half of the 19th century. The grave marker was organised by our Historical Society. The foundation stone for the new St David's Church, built to replace its predecessor, was attached to the western gable end of the Abbey ruins, connecting with the Abbey belfry, was laid by Lady Barrymore, 18 September 1903. It was from Philip de Barry's Welsh origins the parish acquired its patron of St David, recognised to this day by the Protestant church of the village, and also on a plaque dedicated to St David in St Colman's Cathedral. This new church was consecrated the 25th of January 1905. It was closed for worship in 1995. In recent years it has been the venue for many of our Historical Society presentations and lectures. St. David's is recorded as a protected structure by the National Inventory of Archaeological Heritage, NIAH, CO 075-017002 and CO 075-017003.
The series of Irish penal laws circa 1691 to 1760, amongst other things, forbade Catholic education, including the Education Act of 1695. This act ultimately forced Catholic education underground, leading to hedge schools being established throughout Ireland. In Carrigtwohill we have identified at least 4: Carrigan, Ballyvodock, Sean Bond's Cross Barriscourt and Ballintubber. As parents could not afford to pay their teachers, accommodation was offered by local farmers who gifted barns as schoolrooms, with payment in kind of food products and turf for heating. During the summer months, classes would be taught in the open and indoors during the winter months. In 1856, Father Richard Seymour built St. Mary's Mixed National School on Barriscourt Road. The Southern Reporter of the 25th of June confirmed his school replaced the village school, last used during the previous Christmas, describing it as an ill-ventilated, miserable cabin for 240 boys and girls, measuring no more than 20 by 16 feet. Soon after the sisters' arrival, and at the request of Father Seymour, they took on the children's education until about 1898. For 80 years, his school catered for the needs of all the children of the parish until 1937, when the girls were transferred to their new school, Carrigtwohill, erected by Canon Bowler, parish priest. The same year, an extension to the sisters' day and boarding school was erected and attached to one built in 1903, itself replacing the original day and boarding school established by the sisters in 1879. Next, in 1957, the new boys' national school, Carrigtwohill, was built to replace Father Seymour's first national school, which served the pupils of the parish for 100 years. To mark Carrigtwohill's 40th anniversary, the original ornamental ball, once mounted on the western gable of Father Seymour's school, was resited here on the 23rd of June 1997, where it proudly stands today. The 2000s saw an explosion in the school's population of the parish. The first major redevelopment was an expansion of both existing national schools, followed by opening Community National School, Carrigtwohill, in September 2015, and Carrigtwohill Community College Coláiste de Pobal Carrigtwohill in August 2016.
Oh, the bobbies in Carrick were shaking in fear when some raiders with arms came flocking in here. They called on surrender, no answer they got. Begarse as their leader will fire on the spot.
Late on the night of the 3rd of January 1920, the tranquil village of Carrigtwohill was disturbed by the crackle of gunfire, followed by a loud explosion. In what was the first operation authorised by IRA headquarters, the Royal Irish Constabulary Barracks was under attack by a unit of volunteers from Cork No. 1 Brigade. The RIC garrison was ultimately forced to surrender. There were no casualties during the attack. The barracks was badly damaged and was later demolished. It was the first RIC installation to be captured by the IRA. The barracks was situated at the corner of Well Lane, facing Church Lane. The first shots fired by the IRA came from the 3 windows over Kate Murphy's shop, diagonally opposite the building.
The first came along that the raiders had seen Johnny Power from the rock coming from
Carrigtwohill and District Historical Society marked the centenary of the capture of the RIC barracks by unveiling a temporary commemorative plaque and raising of the tricolour at the exact hour the attack commenced. Later in 2020, the Historical Society organised a dignified ceremony to dedicate a permanent plaque commemorating the capture of the barracks. The plaque was unveiled by the Lord Mayor, but due to COVID restrictions, only a small number of guests were able to attend.
Now Johnny at Terry's, he got the great fright. He was woke from his sleep in the middle of the night. He called up to Miss Jo, and it was his delight, for he slept on her sofa for the rest of the night. Now patching the waxer, he went to the bog, and a drain he fell in because of the fog. A raider came on him with rifle in hand, saying, "Waxer, we'll shoot you if you're not going to stand." "Look here, mate," says Paddy, "'tis I'm in a fix. I came down to the bog for a handful of sticks. If you're out for shooting by the light of the moon, the first shot you fire, let it be at Muldoon. Cheer up, jolly fellows, no die in despair, for the rebels of Carrig or the Dills may care."
St. Mary's Roman Catholic Church, Carrigtwohill. Parish priest Father Richard Seymour began a subscription to have his new parish church built in the parish to replace the one built by Father Horgan, then falling into ruin. He was the first to contribute £100. Its construction works were undertaken by Mr. Newstead of Fermoy, estimated to cost £2,500, based upon the architectural drawings of George Coppinger Ashlin of Rossmore. His mother was Dorinda Coppinger of Rossmore. The cornerstone of today's St. Mary's was laid down 4th November 1869 by Bishop of Cloyne Dr. William Keane, the foundation stone having been laid a week earlier. This church was erected on the site of the former, then almost totally in ruins. Itself erected in 1812, on the site held in perpetuity by Thomas Forrest, who became owner of the land by the sale of Lord Barrymore's estate. The new church was consecrated on the 14th of May 1872. This was not when the first Mass was celebrated by Richard Seymour. That took place the previous day. In 1885, Richard Seymour died and was interred within his beloved church, but subsequently reinterred in the main cemetery.
Make me a channel of your peace.
Where there is hatred, let me bring you love. Where there is injury, your pardon, Lord. And where there's doubt, through faith in you. On a glorious summer's day in 1875, Mother Magdalene, with 3 of her sisters of her order, the poor servants of the Mother of God, arrived at the railway station and were greeted by the villagers, led by their parish priest, Father Richard Seymour. By the following year, they had established their convent on the field of a cow, given them by Father Seymour. Within the convent house, the sisters established a day and boarding school in 1879 for young ladies, the first in Cork since Nan O'Neagle and the Ursulines in 1770. From 1880, Trinity College Dublin began publishing names of students who had passed the intermediate examination introduced the previous year. The first for St. Aloysius Convent School was Catherine Barry, who was awarded a junior grade for under 16s. In 1881, the sisters established Our Lady of Lourdes School in Monkstown. By 1884, they transferred to Carrigtwohill. The first extension to the convent's day and boarding school was completed by 1903. No further expansion took place until 1937, when a new block was added, with classrooms and utilities on the ground floor with a dormitory overhead. Mother Magdalene of the Sacred Heart was born Frances Margaret Taylor, 1832, in England, the daughter of a clergyman. During the Crimean War, 1853 to 1856, she served as a volunteer nurse with Florence Nightingale. Mother was named Venerable by Pope Francis in 2014, the first formal stage on the way to sainthood. Originally owned by Father Richard Seymour, Taylor House on Main Street, Carrigtwohill, is named in her honour.
The tide battle on the shore at Rossmore. Cach na dacú na rá Rossamura by Dáví de Barra. In 1833, Rossmore, from the Irish Russmore, meaning a big piece of land sticking out into the water, was the site of a famous incident in the Tide War, which stretched from 1831 to 1834. The Tide War was a grassroots campaign with no external structure or leadership, whose aim was to prevent the collection of a religious 10% taxation on crops and farm animals, which all, Church of Ireland, Dissenters and Roman Catholics, had to pay to the local Church of Ireland minister. The local community acted together in refusing to cooperate with the payment of the tithe. In June 1833, local people in Carrigtwohill banded together to derail the assessment process, which was being carried out with the support of 2 magistrates, a detachment of armed police, 80 soldiers from the 29th Regiment, and 30 cavalrymen from the 7th Dragoons. A huge crowd of local youths, women and men descended on Rossmore and attacked them with sticks, stones and farm implements. Because the crowd had no firearms, the army and police were restricted from using lethal force, and many were driven into the waters of the harbour by the barrage of stones. As the tide of battle turned against him, one of the police fired his rifle without permission, but missed the local he was aiming at and shot a soldier dead. At this point, the state forces retreated, some to Thomas Carpenter's yard, which was nearby. Prominent on the side of the Crown forces were magistrates Captain Hoare and Nicholas M. Cummins, as well as Captain Bingham and Captain Nangle. To the fore in resisting them were Philip Hyde of Barry's Court, James Sheen, Margaret and Kate O'Sullivan, and Kate Fitzgerald.